All right, so we have another guest on today. His name is Steve Miller, and he's from Highland. And I wanted to bring him on because I've been doing Sway Love for about 3 years, and with doing Sway Love, I've not only had to watch a lot of city council meetings, but I've attended my fair share of city council meetings. And Steve gave one of the best public comments that I've ever seen. So I wanted to, bring him on to talk about that public comment. And I'll post the video of the comment so everybody who hasn't seen it can watch it. But Steve, you opened up, and I'm going to read this because it's so pertinent and important in my opinion, and obviously in yours because you said it. You said, "I'm just the guy that spends every day at your shelter playing with pit bulls. I go there, I play with them, I walk them, I run them, I roll in the grass with them. I give them belly rubs. They give me big old wet kisses. I tell them that I love them and that they're special." That was your opening line to the San Bernardino City Council, and that pretty much says it all right there. I mean,
I'm just a guy that spends every day at your shelter playing with pit bulls. I go there, I play with them, I walk them, I run with them, I roll in the grass with them. I give them belly rubs. They give me big old wet kisses. I tell them I love them and that they're special.
Yeah, it's true. And I've talked to the people at the city council, or not the city council, but at the shelter, and I told them, it doesn't matter whether you're a non-kill shelter, a kill shelter, or a rescue. Those dogs need to get out of those kennels. They need human interaction. They talk about the dogs that are shutting down right now. That tells it all right there. Those dogs are shutting down because they're locked in a cage. They need somebody. They need people to interact with them. That's what they are. They've got a heart, they've got a soul, and they love people.
yeah, I mean, all dogs need that interaction, especially shelter dogs who are basically impounded against their will and they're just sitting there. But especially pit bulls, because a lot of these shelters, and you can speak to San Bernardino City because you've been there and I haven't, but at Carson, they make pit bulls jump through like 10 hoops to even get out of the kennel. So they're the dogs that never get out. They can't be walked by volunteers unless they pass a temperament test. They're not given a temperament test until they get interest from the public. So 90% of those dogs never get a temperament test, which means they're never able to leave the kennel. So they're the dogs that absolutely the most need that human interaction. They just sit there and go kennel crazy.
The pit bulls, they love people. I was always told that, and to be perfectly honest, up until last year, I was on the other side of the fence about pit bulls. And then I saw London on the internet, and I started following London and saw, hey, that's a pit bull. He was abused, and he still has nothing but love for humans. And that dog became my hero, and that's how I got into this. And I'm now 100% pro pit bull, and I go there every day. I invite people. I said, if you're afraid of pit bulls, come down and spend the day with me. I'll show you some of the most loving dogs you'll ever want to meet on this planet. And I have yet to meet one that was ever aggressive towards me, even when they're in the kennels growling and barking. You get them out, and it's nothing but love.
That's the kookiness of this entire process, is because, all dogs are individuals, and with each breed, you're going to have some fantastic ones by and large, and you're going to have some, ones that are sketchy or, have bad temperaments, and that goes with every breed. But, the shelters make it seem as though you can't get the pit bulls out, or there's a liability issue because they're dangerous. So they get the least amount of human interaction as any dog in the shelter. But in reality, they're by and large the breed that's the most friendly, or the type that's the most friendly towards people.
I agree. Pit bulls have just shown me who they are and what they stand for, and they're nothing but love. I'm telling you. Yeah, you're going to find some of them are dog aggressive, but even at that point, they're not going to hurt a person. They're just not. And when I talk to people about the pit bulls, and I tell them, when I'm walking down the street now and I see a pit bull growling at me, I don't look at the dog. I look at the guy at the other end of the leash, because that's why that dog is that way.
When you went to the council meeting last week and gave your comment, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you said you're not affiliated with any organization. You're just an individual guy who has been going consistently to the shelter to spend time with the dogs, period. I mean, that's why you do it.
That's it. I'm not with a rescue. I'm not with the shelter. I got hooked up there through Colleen Precy, helping her with some adoption events, and then I started talking to her about walking the dogs down there, and she said, yeah, come on down and walk dogs. So that's what I've been doing. It started off as I was going to go down there 2 days, and now I'm down there every day. I'm self-employed, so I get up in the morning, do what I got to do, and I'm at the shelter by 11 o'clock, and I leave there at 5.
And that's another reason I wanted to highlight you here is because, I mean, again, you're not with an organization. You're just a guy who loves dogs, who went to a shelter. What, like you said, I didn't even know that you felt that certain way towards pit bulls prior to meeting them, which a lot of people do. You meet a pit bull, you fall in love with them, you start dedicating your time to you're just visiting them in shelters, which is so important because so many people out here, they hear the word shelter and they think one thing, or it gives off this impression that it's a space where these dogs are safe. And then you go there and you find out the exact opposite. And then a lot of people that know about shelters, they just stay away because it's too emotional or they can't take it because it's too sad. So, I mean, it's such a good thing that you're doing that I want to say, hey, everybody, look at this guy. This matters because spending time with these dogs and exposing them to human love, which may be the only interaction that they get before they're walked back and killed by this place, is so important.
When I first started doing this, all my friends used to tell me, Steve, I don't know that you can take it. And they were right. I mean, there's been times that I'd come home and after playing with a dog, and then I get on Facebook and, hey, that dog was killed. An hour after I just got done laying in the grass with him. And I go, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I said, because I cry for every one of those dogs. They may not live with me, but I love them every bit as much as the dog that climbs into bed with me at night. And it does get rough, but friends give me the little pep talk, and I put my pants on in the morning, and I go right back out there and do it.
It's definitely heartbreaking stuff to just, get to know the dogs. You have these interactions with them, and then you find out that, 80% of them had a bad result. And I know exactly where you're coming from with that because it's brutal at times, but at the end of the day, your efforts matter. And I can speak for myself because I go and photograph, and it's like, well, 90% of those dogs don't make it out. So it's like some people say, well, why do you continue to go? Well, because even if I photograph like 50, if two of those 50 pictures actually help 2 dogs get out, well, man, like that's worth going. And then there's the interaction with each dog and just spending that, even if it's only 5 minutes, spending that time sitting there with the cage, petting the dog. I mean, you can't put into words how priceless that is to a dog who may sit in that run for 3, 4, 5 days straight and not have anyone show it any attention, and it gets out for the first time and it's just walked back to be euthanized. But it's like we can't stop going because then these dogs are just there. They have nobody speaking on their behalf. So like I view your public comment as like a public service and an inspirational thing for other people, because none of us, when we go to shelters, none of us like intend to be like a dog advocate. We just initially go there to like visit the dogs, and that's how I started. It was just I wanted to take pictures of the dogs and visit them. It's only when you're on site where you see like all these crazy things happening, and then you're like, wow, like why is this happening, or why is that happening? And then it prompts you speaking out. Like you said a couple things in your comment. One is how sick the dogs are getting at San Bernardino, and maybe you can speak on why that is. And 2, you said you made a comment about donations not being used, which I've also seen at other shelters. So I'd like you to delve deeper into that if you could.
Yeah, the dogs. I mean, odds are, and honestly, San Bernardino City Shelter is the first shelter I've ever been at. The only other one I've been at was in Inland Valley Humane Society, and I will say that one was pretty clean. But San Bernardino shelters, yeah, they need to clean those kennels, and it's not just with cold water. They they got to disinfect them, you know, and because the dog comes in there, and after 3 or 4 days, you'll get them out, and then you see it'll start with a small cough. Well, you know, and I've learned now that, hey, that's the onset of kennel cough. You know, start treating it then. Because if you don't, after about 5 days is when they start having the green snot and things like that. And then it's a major issue. That's when all these rescues, they get them out, and then they spend hundreds and thousands of dollars just to get them taken care of and get them better. And as far as the donations, I know a lot of people across the country, and including Canada, that have donated to that shelter. And I keep telling them, if you guys would take a little step to the left, everybody wants to help. And it wouldn't cost them any more money. You know, just be a little more dog and people friendly. Don't be so quick to euthanize a dog. The other day, I was playing with a dog. I got her out. Her name's Bailey. It was her first day out, and she was all dirty. And I went to Colleen. I saw her there, and I said, hey, Colleen, would it be okay if I just pulled the hose out into the grass? I've got dog shampoo in my truck, and give her a bath. Well, Colleen said, you know what? We got a tub back there and warm water. I'll take her back and give her a bath. So she did that. And then we played for about an hour, and it was the end of the day. I put her back. The next day I come, she's not in her kennel. I'm going, why? You know, what happened to Bailey? She was fine. She did have a little bit of cough, and there were vets running around that day, and I went to the vet, and he started her on meds. Okay. And then it come to find out, they tried to tell us, well, she's so sick she had green snot coming out of her nose. We had to get her out of there. You know what? No, I don't believe that. I've seen how kennel cough works. It don't go from a cough to green snot overnight, you know. And the woman was begging him, hey, come on, bring her back out. It's Saturday. You need to bring her back out so the people can see her. Nope, can't do it. Can't have a sick dog out there. It's a catch-22, you know. And then we say, well, God, we're afraid to tell them they're sick, because they're going to go to the back. And once they go to the back, I've never seen one come out to the front ever again. So
Bailey, the dog you're talking about, is still in the back.
Actually, no. Bailey did get somebody called in because we were just putting it out there. Look, she's in the back. She's got to get out of here. If she's not gone by Tuesday, she's dead. And somebody called in and rescued her.
What's the city shelter do with those donations? I know you mentioned that you had a friend that donated 2 high-power washers, and they just never used them. I mean,
I've never seen them. I don't know. I'm not privy to that information. I just know that I see all the time about people that donated money and donated stuff to the shelter. I don't know where it goes.
I mean, at Carson, I can speak to the donations not being used because they get donations all the time, and they get people that come in that offer to do them a certain service, and red tape is tied around these people. Like one instance, somebody donated, like, I think it was 30 or 40 of those nice Caranda beds to the Carson shelter, the ones that like elevate them off the concrete, and they don't even use them. They just stack them up in one of the back sheds, and they just sit there. People donate blankets and food, drop it off all the time. I've heard some of the volunteers tell me that they don't even let us use those donations. The staff takes them home. I don't know how true that is or not. Come on, like what? Like,
I know there's problems there, and I know if they would be a little more friendlier towards the dogs and the people, that there would be so many people that would want to help them. I put in a volunteer app over a month ago, and odds are I'd be willing to bet if you walked into that front office right now, it'd still be sitting on the top shelf, because Debbie Shooker herself pulled it off the top shelf and said, yes, here it is, about 2 weeks ago, after everybody else that put in a volunteer app had been called in and did their initial walkthrough. And all I want to do is be approved for a volunteer so that I can go get the dogs myself. I know it's an inconvenience when I'm asking for dogs and the shelter staff have to stop what they're doing. That could be important. I don't know what they're doing back there, and come and get a dog from you, or come back and put the dog away. They know I'm there every day. I'm not going anywhere. When they won't let me walk dogs, I lay in front of the kennels and pet them through the bars.
right.
They need to get their act together over there.
Well, to San Bernardino's credit, I will say that, or the city's credit, like, you being a member of the public, for you to be able to go to the shelter and get dogs out and spend X amount of time with them in the yard, that's great, because there's a lot of shelters that wouldn't even let people do that. So like, how are you able to get dogs out and spend 30, 40 minutes with them in the yard? Do you have like a volunteer with you there, or do they trust you to a certain extent to do that? Or?
You know what? You're right. People have asked me before, told me you need to go to DeVore. DeVore does not let you do that.
Yeah, DeVore doesn't even have volunteers.
No, Inland Valley doesn't let you do that. I went to try and help a dog in Inland Valley, and a shelter staff just brought the dog out, and it's this little concrete patio, and she held the dog while I sat there and played with the dog. But no, right. As far as that goes, San Bernardino is good about that. If a dog's available, anybody can just go up and say, hey, I'd like to see that dog, and they'll get him out. And they do have grass areas. I mean, there's grass there. They have a lot of play areas that you can just take a dog into. They have a couple long runs that you can take dogs into. But yeah, that part of it, they're really good. And as far as trust, I mean, like I said, they will get a dog out for anybody. If it's somebody that's there to adopt and they want to see a dog, the volunteer will go out and get the dog. I mean, if the person's a little worried about it, yeah, they'll sit there. But I've been there so long that they just go get the dog and hand me the leash, and we go and do our thing. We play and run, whatever the dog.
That's great, because like I said, this is not happening in a lot of these shelters. DeVore, LA County, this does not happen. Good God, they hide behind liability. They don't even let their volunteers take out dogs, let alone members of the public. So I'm not here to, bash San Bernardino City. I notice things that they're doing that are great, and that's one of them. It's like if they let members of the public like you go and take dogs out to the yard, I mean, that's how it should be done. So they're at least doing that right.
Even if you want to adopt, you got to get to know the dog.
Yeah.
You do that by looking at it through kennel bars. So you got to get the dog out of there, and you're not going to do that by sitting there 5 minutes while somebody else holds the dog.
For sure.
I've had dogs that were rescued and adopted right out of my hands. I'd be out there with a dog, and they'd see me running around or laying in the grass with it, and I've had rescues come up. I want that dog. I hand them a leash. Here you go. Get him out of here. I had a dog one time that was so shut down, he would not let anybody touch him. I told him I wanted to get him out. They literally had to drag him out of the kennel. And when they handed me the leash, all he wanted to do was fight, and not aggressively. There was no growling, no barking, just pulling away, fighting. He didn't want me to touch him. And I just sat there for a while and held onto the leash, and finally I got him into a play area, and I let go of the leash, and I sat in a chair, and I just sat there and talked to him. The dog wandered around, and I waited, and he finally came to me. And within 2 hours, we were running around that shelter like we'd known each other for our lifetime. And I got him out first thing the next day, and I was walking him, and somebody came up and said, I want to adopt that dog. And to this day, they send me videos and pictures of them with that dog. A lot of them, when they're shut down like that, if you just sit there and let them make the first move, let them know that they're safe, they're going to be fine. And another thing with with me being approved as a volunteer, the volunteers, just because they still can't get dogs out until their available date, but they can go sit in the kennels with them. I know a guy that, Alex over there, that you'll see him sitting in kennels with dogs, sitting on the bed, petting them, playing with them right there in the kennel. And that's great too. Even that will keep them from shutting down. Any human interaction will keep those dogs from shutting down. And they got to have it. If that shelter wants to keep those dogs adoptable, they have to give them that interaction.
What's your status volunteer-wise? Have you not heard anything from Debbie regarding that outside of the last time that you were there and asked about the app?
I haven't heard a thing. I can tell you that David Toro had a meeting with the city, and he said, he brought me up and said, this man just wants to volunteer, and his application's been sitting there for a month, and supposedly they said they're going to check into it and see about getting me approved, but that's been a few days. I haven't heard anything.
Well, let's hope that you get in there as soon as possible. Before we go, I wanted to touch on something, because you mentioned that you first came across Sway Love when you went to the Riverside County city board of supervisors meeting when they were doing the breed specific legislation last year in October. What was your takeaway from watching the 5 board of supervisors sit up there and talk about the dogs?
I thought it was ridiculous. You know, when you were up there talking and you were trying to get an answer about how do you know this is a pit bull? If it looks like a pit bull, it is a pit bull. You know what? No, that's not true. That is absolutely not true. And there was a guy there that with scientific knowledge that showed him, no, that's not true. It could be
Hey,
one.
Dr. Arizari was there. He gave a public comment and they just discarded it. He's a geneticist.
I hate BSL. I think it should be across the board. If you want to say spay and neuter across the board, go for it. You got to make a solution somewhere, but breed specific, no, I will not go with that at all.
Well, I was just taken by the lack of thoughtfulness from all of them. I thought that Jeffrey's viewing the prior meetings, I forget his first name, but the board member Jeffries felt like he was kind of on the fence about it, but all the other guys were just I guess I can say ignorant to it, not calling them dumb, but they were just ignorant to the issue. It's like they didn't even look into it at all. They just had their personal bias and what they heard, and that's all they went on. It's like they didn't even do any type of research at all, and it showed from the dais.
Right now, David Toro is pretty much under fire. They seem to think that he's running the whole thing over here, but I got news. David Toro is not. He's getting the same emails everybody else is. The only difference is he's trying to make a difference.
In closing, thanks for taking the time to talk to me, and way more, thanks for the comment that you give and what you do on a daily basis, because more people need to be doing what you're doing and have the attitude that you bring to the table. I appreciate it as a dog owner and as a pit bull advocate. You are a hero of mine, so thank you.
Thank you. I just, I love the dogs. That's it.